All right, I guess I'm on.
Ruth, you did a YouTube to practice?
I didn't do a YouTube to practice, but I did a practice goblet. So
Oh, okay.
I made this one here. Let me switch to a different camera here. Go to this one here. This is box elder. I made this goblet, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 p.m. this evening. And there's my little captured ring. And this is, this needs to be sanded a bit on the bottom here, but it's real pretty wood and it turned nice. And this was literally the first captured ring I made. So we'll see if I can't screw up the second one.
All right.
No pressure, Matt.
Yeah.
No pressure. That everybody in the world could be watching you, Matt, but it's okay.
Okay. Feel free to ask questions at any point. This is the rest of that wood, the second half of that piece of wood that I turned the earlier goblet from. I have completed the bowl of the goblet, and I have cleaned up a little on the bottom. I've got a tenon in the chuck. I've cleaned up the bowl a little bit on the bottom. This is going to be my bottom of my goblet, and I've got a rubber chucky in here holding it for me. Let me see if I can move this over here and get it a little more focused there. So any questions so far on what I've done?
No,
I'm okay.
I don't think so.
Oops, that's not the right one. Let's do that.
Books is wide open. You got a question about this with Matt. Let's go.
Okay, that's okay. If nobody's got questions, I'll just wade in. Okay, so the way you turn captured rings is basically you just leave a bit here that becomes the ring, and you turn it into a ring. You undercut it until it comes loose, and then you sand it with sandpaper on the piece. So a couple of things I learned this afternoon turning this is you want to turn the ring as much as possible before you try to cut it off, because that reduces your sanding. So one of the things, I don't know if y'all can see that right here, but I've got a little bit of a ridge in here where I undercut it that I have not been able to sand away. So that's something I'm going to try to avoid on this one. But I don't. Yes, sir.
If you take and tape a piece of sandpaper on that stem, you can
that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing, and for some reason, because of the way I don't have a lot of stem here, so maybe I need to reduce the width of my sandpaper or something, but I couldn't quite get it off. So I'm going to try to avoid that here. But yep, that's what I was doing.
You generate heat.
Yep.
Too hard on the sanding, you have a split ring.
Yep. So you turn the lathe down and do it that way. All right. So and basically what I do is I just turn a piece here in the middle that's going to become the ring. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how wide I want my ring, and I want it so it stays on here. So I'm going to reduce this width a little bit so it stays on the goblet, stays captured.
Using a Ellsworth type?
I could use a skew to do this. I could use a parting tool.
Use what you're comfortable with, and that's that Ellsworth type gouge, right?
Yep. And all these are shearing cuts, so I'm getting a nice smooth finish. So that's probably good there. That'll stay on. So then what I'm going to try to do here with the, I'm going to decide where I'm going to put my ring. I'm going to put my ring so that bit there is going to be my ring. Okay. I'm just using a parting tool here, but you could use a skew, you could use a bowl gouge, you could use a detail gouge. I'm just rounding off the ends here. I'm sort of using my parting tool like a skew. Now, one of the other things I discovered here is that you need to have room to get in here to undercut this ring. You need to, so this is going to be the bottom of my goblet. This is going to be the base of the goblet, about this distance here. So the rest of this is going to be stem, and I'm just going to part it off. I could use the other tool. That'd probably work better. So I've got room to get my tools in under here to undercut this. Now, I'm going to put some detail on this bit here. Let's see, let's use this to do it with. I want to put some detail here, so I'm going to finish that now so I get this to where I want it.
Looks like a little fingernail gouge.
Yeah, so I like to put little OGs in here. Let's use this tool. It's not quite an OG. Let's make it an OG. Using a detail gouge there. And then I'm going to reduce this so I've got more room to get under there. This little bit here. Okay. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to try to get in under here and start undercutting the ring.
This is a question we had from a viewer or a member a couple of weeks ago. How do you get there?
What was the question?
How do you get where you are? Or where you're going?
You mean, what do you mean to this point?
No, when you at this point, where do you go now?
Now
That's your question. How do you get underneath there and cut it?
Last week.
So I've got what I've got here is a detail gouge, and I can use this, or I can use a skew. Let's see here. I can use a skew, okay? And this will let me undercut here. And I'm using it as a scraper. And I'm just sort of rolling it underneath, and I got a nice little catch there, so we'll go and smooth that out. And then I can come around here and do the same thing on this side.
That's the same kind of double-edged scraper Cindy Drozdel loves.
Yeah, there you go, double-edged scraper, I like it. One of the other tools I've got here, this is a 1/8" parting tool. And what I did is I ground the end here. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's a little slanted. It's not quite flat across. And what that lets me do is it really lets me corner around here, around the corners here of things.
Okay, so you cut on a point.
Yep.
And not have the ridge get in your way.
Yep. Now I'm also going to use the side as a sort of a scraper to go around that corner. And then I'm going to come back on the other side and do it the same way. So there's a lot of ways you can skin this cat.
So when you're doing that, you can ride on the area that you don't have a sharpener on the top of that parting.
Yep. So, and one of the other things I want to do here is I'm going to do a little sanding right now. So I'm going to sand as much of this ring as I can on the lathe. Because it's a pain to sand when it's all, when the ring is off the lathe, when it's spinning freely. I mean, you can tape it, but it's nowhere near as effective as sanding it before you cut it off. So sand the ring beforehand. So I got a lot of different sandpaper here. Okay, so this is shaping up. So there's the ring so far, okay? And let me switch to a different view here. And let me see if you can see it a little better. Let's try this view here. So you can see how that ring is undercut here, okay? Now, I'm going to try to curl around, and they make specific tools for cutting these rings off, okay? And it probably work better than the tools that I have, but these work. So why not? Any questions so far?
Nope, I'm cool.
Good.
All righty then.
Thank you.
Yep.
You can take a thick screwdriver and bend it and
There you go.
sharpen it like a skew.
Or an Allen wrench and put it in a piece of wood to use as a handle and turn that. I've got a little tool here I bought from Don Derry. He calls it an ornament tool, and it's designed for turning in reverse, but it works really good going this way. Okay. I mean, he got it for turning, hollowing ornaments in reverse this way when your lathe is moving the wrong way in reverse. But this works really well to hollow things like this in this direction.
And that lathe that's off to camera right, when it sets on a tool rest, it won't let it kick around.
Yeah, this bar sits on the tool rest, and you have to angle your tool rest so that it does sit on the tool rest, but it won't grab the tool and catch. So, but I'm just going to use the basic tools that I've got. I'm going to make a little more room here, I think, so that I can get in underneath easier, and then we'll part it off. And then basically you just finish the goblet, you tape the goblet up, you tape the ring out of the way while you finish it, and then you tape sandpaper to the stem and sand it. So.
Hey, questions, anybody? Jump in.
I'm just going to say I use an Allen wrench for that to get underneath there.
To do the undercut.
Right.
And you're
That's a
holding.
good idea. Now, I could even use this parting tool as a scraper going in like this. So there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Hey, Matt,
Yes, sir.
I took a parting tool, a thin parting tool like you're using there, and made it into a thin badan, and it cuts
Okay.
rings great.
I bet it does. Yeah, I have a really thin parting tool also. I've got a really thin one here that gets in here really easily too. So there you go, it's off. So you can see, let me switch to the other view here. You can see that it's got a rim under here that's rough and needs sanding, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer that. So I'm going to get the ring out of the way, and I'm going to get masking tape, right? And I'm going to tape it so it doesn't get in the way while I make space to sand it. Now, if anybody's like, I'm new to this, so if anybody's got a better way to do this, I'm all ears.
I know we get a deal on a set of tools for like $100 that'll do that. But then I don't have $100, so I'm paying real close attention to what you're doing.
Let's not use that one. Let's use this one. So now I'm just going to turn away the stuff I don't need and finish up my stem here.
Switch
Matt,
camera.
can you change your camera?
Want to see it on top?
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
Yep. I'm just going to work not to not hit the tape. So maybe I'll put a little bead in here. Let's do that with the, I don't know, I could do that with a skew, or I could do it with a detail gouge. Get rid of that.
Matt, in my experience, if you don't turn now, if you leave that area flat and sort of wide open and tape sandpaper to it, you can finish the inside of the ring.
Yep, I will have room on the stem to do that. So that's my plan right now.
Folks, Matt's going down a road we want him to go down because he's changing tools to what he's comfortable with, And it's not that you have to have this tool to make this piece.
Yep, I'm just bouncing around using a couple of different tools to get some effects here. I've got a way I like to do goblets, and so that's what I'm doing right now. And I like my transitions, so I'm going to transition it to the stem this way. So okay, so now this bit is ready. So now I'm going to move my ring to the other side and do the rest of the stem, and then I'll put the sandpaper on and sand it, if that's all right.
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
Would you sand the top part of the goblet at this point? I mean, the outside of the top part of the goblet?
I did that before I even got here. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
I finished the bowl of the goblet before I even started working here tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the top is sanded. The top is sanded, you know, to the point where to the stem, the base of the bowl here. The inside is sanded and the top has been sanded. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Nobody wants to see sanding, so I try not to do that.
I miss it so much. But hey, folks, if you're doing a regular goblet without all this on the bottom, you want to finish that cup long before you go to stem.
Yeah, you don't ever want to go back to the top, to the bowl, because it's fragile. This is not. Hang on a second, guys.
All sanding creates friction. Friction creates heat, and it will twist off on you without you even having an idea it's going to leave.
Plus, it adds stress, and you don't want to stress a thin goblet stem. You know, that's the whole point. Using the rubber chucky or the tennis ball or whatever you're holding it with.
So you're going to turn that stem down to about a 16th?
Yeah. No, I'm not. Not on a demo.
Where is your sense of adventure, Matt?
I did it. Why can't you?
That's not going to steal Cade's thunder. See, Cade's sitting home with cash trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. See, Cade's going to come back next week with one that's about 1/8 of an inch thick.
Well, you're supposed to turn it down to minus 1/16 of an inch.
Minus?
Yeah, I can do that.
That will never work.
It's a two-part piece.
Got to remember that rule: the inside dimension will never exceed the outside dimension.
That's right.
I have a question. I have a question for people that are experienced with this. Is it better to leave that stem thicker for sanding the ring and then turn it down thin later? Or does it matter?
I would
My
and use it for sanding and then tape the ring up and continue to make your stem thinner and thinner with it out of the way.
So thicker is better for while you're sanding.
Yeah,
Okay.
he left the shoulder in there that he pushed the ring onto, so he could start doing his decorative work. That could work on yours also, and you get that point, you get all that bottom finished up, then you separate the ring or move it to the top and continue on. You can even sand it with the ring before you continue on.
All right, so
Matt, I have a question.
Yes,
before we get to sanding. The way you just cut the stem, did you lay the tool on top of the stem?
I did. So let me see if I can zoom in on what I'm doing, and I'll show you what I did.
Please, thank you.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a shearing cut on the stem. Okay. So I can cut here where I'm on center coming around, but then when I come up here, my tool is now on top of the stem and I'm cutting with this edge here. I'm getting a slicing cut here. So my tool edge is laying on top and I'm cutting in the middle of this edge here. So I'm getting a very sharp, steep shearing cut when I come across the stem like this. Okay. And at the point where I start to go back uphill, that's when I want to come back downhill the other direction, if that makes sense.
You're
Okay,
riding
yeah,
the bevel when you're making that top cut.
I absolutely I am, and I'm taking
So-
I'm not putting any pressure on because I don't want to put a lot of pressure on the stem here because I could snap it. Okay.
Right, right.
So, and
I
one of
just had never seen that technique. So I literally sharpened my first Ellsworth grind last night. So I'm
Okay.
learning technique here.
Well, this is not something that comes naturally or easily, and nobody really teaches it all that much. But this is sort of how I do it, and this is sort of how I evolved doing these. I've made quite a number of goblets and finials, so this is one of the things that I do. And I'm trying to on these finishing cuts, I'm trying to get shearing cuts, and a shearing cut is with a steep angle, and I'm riding the bevel along the wood like that. So my angle is steep like this. Now, if you go back in some of the demos I've done for the club, and some of the other people have done for the club on shearing cuts, there is a demo that I did specifically on shearing cuts, and that might be helpful here too. So
I'll look it up. Thank you very much for stopping and answering that.
You're more than welcome. Anything else?
Hey, Matt, as a clock face, when you're doing that, the actual cut's taking place at what, about 11 o'clock?
Let me switch to the other view. Okay. So when I first come across, I'm coming across almost on center, and then I'm coming up here. Okay. And as I get into this, as the curve starts curving towards the stem, I get deeper and steeper, if you will. Okay. So
right. I'm just talking about, for the
so
members.
I'm here
as a clock face where the cut's taking place, regarding, like a clock face, we're at.
I'm first starting out at 9 o'clock. Okay.
Okay.
And then I allow the tool to creep up past 10. And as I get here, as I go through this transition part where I'm no longer cutting across the face, I'm now cutting along, it's shifting from the face to the spindle cut, if you will. Okay.
Actually.
As I do that, it shifts up, and where I'm cutting, instead of cutting out here on the end of the tool, it now begins, I'm now cutting down here in the middle of this flute. Okay. So when I hit,
essentially you're going from the out at the end where it's functioning like a spindle gouge to the wing where it functions like a shearing cut with the skew chisel.
Correct.
You're correct about it coming to a shearing cut like a skew chisel, but it is all shearing cuts. Okay. I'm getting a shearing cut out here on the end as I'm coming across the face. Okay. And then, so there's nothing to keep me from rolling the tool up to get a shearing cut with the flute here, if that makes sense. Because the wood is now spinning this way, right? My rotation is here. As it's meeting the tool edge at a steep angle, I want to keep that same angle as I roll it down in. So I'm getting a good steep, as the rotating wood is rolling into the tool edge. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying. I got you. Boy, I got some practicing to do.
Yeah. Once you've got it, once you've got it, you're like, oh, that's what he meant.
Well, envision doing it with a skew. You don't have all that back area, and you want to get up on top of that piece without turning that corner coming down. And you want to go across it with your skew. What will you be doing? You'd be rubbing your bevel, controlling the cut, and you'd be closer to the top of the piece than ever before.
And you're taking light cuts.
Yes.
Okay. You're not taking a lot, you're not putting a lot of pressure on, you're not getting heavy cuts. Now, as this is coming around, I want this to wrap this way. Okay. Because so that the sandpaper is moving into the ring from the right direction. If I put the flap, if I wrap it the other direction, then it's going to just take the sandpaper right off, because it'll catch this extra flap and just tear it off. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to tape this like we talked about earlier.
And if you take and put a piece of tape on the bitter end of it, then wrap it around and let it flap instead of taping it that way.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Unwrap your sandpaper, put the tape on the end of the sandpaper, and then wrap it on with the tape holding it on, and leave that. I'm pointing and it doesn't do any good. And leave that end of the sandpaper flat.
So it basically makes it a flap wheel with one flap.
Oh, I see what you're saying. All right, well, let me try this and then I'll go try that. How will that be?
I like this. Let's go.
So now what I've got to do is I've got to roll my ring around on this sandpaper.
If you just move it around without trying to spin it, you'll still get all sides. You'll just be sanding in the front, back, and middle.
Okay, these are great ideas, but folks, if he blows it up, I want him to blow it up on his terms. Come on.
I know that this works because this is what worked this afternoon.
Okay.
I can see where it might work better with just the inner part taped in, because then you've got that flap that's sanding all the way around that ring on the outside. This way you have to push it inward because your sandpaper is in a solid state. Or if you got that loose end flapping around, it's sanding all the way around that ring.
Yeah, but you're right. But this is kind of loose, so it's not completely flush on the stem.
Right.
Yeah, folks, remember there's at least 3 ideas for every turner.
Yeah, for each turner.
Like elbows, no two are the same.
Only 3?
And I don't want to break my ring. That's my primary goal here.
That's it, because we're waiting to see how
Or your stem.
Or my stem. That's right. Good point.
I did that 2 years ago, broke the stem.
All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. That's nice. I've got a nice ring here, and it's on the goblet. So now I'm just going to finish it off and part it off and be done. Take my sandpaper off. At this point, I would sand. You know what? I've got good enough finish cuts on here that I don't feel the need to sand this. So I'll sand here. But now I like to undercut. I like to bevel and undercut my base a little bit. I'm going to tape that. Hang on. So what I've got going on down here at this end. Let me shift this camera a little bit this way. I don't know if y'all can see that, but I've got a little bit. My base comes here, and then it's sort of beveled a little bit, tapered. And I like that because it sort of makes the goblet float off the table a little bit when it's done.
So you don't undercut to the edge, you leave a little edge?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of a bevel here. I don't know, it's maybe 75 degrees. And I'm going to start my undercut a little bit into this. So it's the actual rim is a little bit off of the table. Okay. And I'm going to use my little parting tool because it's my now favorite tool. And just undercut.
This is where you learn those micro cuts, folks. There it is.
Good job, Matt.
Thank you.
Great job, man.
Excellent.
We did it.
Good job.
Fantastic.
Well done.
Looks great, Matt.
So there's my little magical captured ring and my box elder goblet. And let me switch to a different camera here so y'all can see what I meant by that undercutting. Yeah, that ain't gonna work. That's not really working either, is it?
That's where, yeah, you can see how it looks like it's levitating.
Like it's lifting off the table.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. It's very subtle. You can't really see it, but it does do it. So that's how I like to make them. So
Works for me, folks. Open for questions if you got them.
So I'm more than happy to answer questions if anybody's got them.
Great demo, Matt. Really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. I hope the explanations weren't too esoteric. I work a lot on my finishing cuts. Almost every cut I make when I get down near the end, and I really try to, practice those cuts when I do them. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. I've got a lot of practice to get there.
You're welcome. Don't need to make any work for people.
Pretty good for your second
Thank you
one.
so much.
Yeah, I'm real happy. I mean, these are surprisingly easy. I don't know why I haven't done them before. So
yeah, you got a new gimmick to your cups there.
Well, like I said earlier in the meeting, I posted the little one I made like at 5 p.m. or whatever, and I know you did. There's at least 90 people on there who liked that in the last hour and a half before the meeting started. So
no, good.
Yep, I posted the link to the meeting. So yeah, I saw a bunch of you guys were in on that. So I posted a link to the meeting too. So who knows?
Hey, let me say this too, Matt. I joked a while ago about making that a 1/16 stem, but those stems really don't have to be that thin. That's just to say you're able to. What you did there, that looked very much in proportion for that goblet. So that's great.
This is totally functional, and frankly, and I made one that was 13 inches tall that had a 1/32 inch stem. You put that thing on the table and the top goes wibble, wibble, wibble. And, that was the scariest. Carrying that thing around was so scary. It was like,
those are for putting on a shelf to say, hey, I can do it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And I sell these. So that, you want them functional. You don't want it too fragile that people won't use it. You want something that people will use. So.
Yeah,
exactly.
Leave the stems a little thicker.
That's including how to glue the ring back together.
If it's functional, what do you seal the wood with?
Poly works well. I've used Helmsman's Minwax and Helmsman's spar urethane, and people have been very happy with that. Epoxy resins work. You've got to make sure that it's heat tolerant because people will put hot stuff in it, and you can't have a heat intolerant epoxy resin on it. I've not had anybody complain with it. If you want to leave it natural, you can get away with mineral wax and mineral oil and beeswax, or any of a number of other food safe finishes will work. So, just don't make them out of oak and expect people to use them because oak is porous.
If you're going to put something hot in there, what kind of finish would you use?
The Minwax spar urethane is currently my go-to finish. So that's what I'm using, and when it cures, it's food safe, and it seals things up really well, and it's designed to handle liquids. So,
thanks. Your next task is to do 2 rings, split one along the grain, and then interlock them and glue them back together.
Why do 2 when you can do 3?
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. Hey, Dane, write that down. We got it down here.
Great demo, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? If they come up later, please feel free to write. I'm happy to answer questions. You can find me on Facebook. Everybody knows where. So thanks a lot, guys.
Again, Matt, for everybody here in the group, thank you. Excellent demonstration.